Yo, bringing you guys some of my favorite stocks for 2026. Some of these names I've traded over the years, and I wanted to share with you guys if you should buy them or not. This is just solely my opinion in my own experience with trading these stickers. And I wanted to bring you guys a little bit some more entertainment. You guys can see here on the right, there's a couple of memes and some of their CEOs. But to get us started, I wanted to start with Snapchat. This was the very first company I bought, actually. Funny enough, they IPO'd back in 2017. I would put them as run. Unfortunately, I wish they succeeded. They've been public for a number of years and they're still not profitable. I love the platform. I love their CEOs. And at the time, it was a big deal for them to go public, very innovative, but they haven't found a way to make money. So unfortunately, these guys are in the run category. And I wish they weren't, but if unless they turn it around now, they can move up. But in my opinion, I would not buy Snapchat. So let's talk about Mr. Jensen Huang, iced out. Let's see. I think he would go into the generational wealth um, category because man, they run a tight ship over there at Nvidia. If you think about Nvidia, they're projecting to grow 70% over the next year. They just had their big conference. When was it? A couple of days ago, and Jensen was talking about $1 trillion worth of AI spend with until 2027. Guys, this is a lot of money. These guys are the architect of some of these mega machines that go into running all this compute, all these AI chips. And they're not necessarily the manufacturers, they're just the architects. So they're the ones behind building these machines the best way possible so that these chips can run in the best way possible, right? So I think I'm sure you guys have seen what they've done in the last couple of years. If you've been in the market for any amount of years, you've heard of Nvidia, and they're killers. They run a very good company. They make a ton of cash, and they're just growing even more. But when we think of the upside, for example, is Nvidia going to double in the next 2, 3 years? I don't think so. I've been wrong before, but if you think of their market cap, are they really going to be an $8 trillion company in 3 years? These are just bizarre numbers to me. I think their upside might be a little capped, but they're a generational wealth opportunity. And if you're looking into individual stocks, I would highly recommend you look at Nvidia. Let's talk about Vlad in Robinhood. I like the platform. I'll put them as not bad. I'm a fan of Robinhood and their UI is great. I've used a ton of brokerages. If you guys follow my cash seeker put and cover call, my wheel strategy portfolio I've been sharing with you guys, it's on Robinhood. I'm a big fan of it. I've been using it for a number of years. However, they're a very new player in this industry, and this industry is weird. Well, you have players like JP Morgan Chase, you have players like Bank of America with Merrill Lynch. JP Morgan Chase has their Chase accounts where you can have a brokerage there. Wells Fargo has their own kind of brokerage within their app. And it's all good picks, Webull, M1 Finance, Morgan Stanley, all these other players in the industry is very competitive, but Robinhood is a true disruptor. They came out with no fees for their trading accounts. This is a big deal. Back in the day, I wasn't even alive for it, but you had to call someone and tell them to buy stock of whatever stock you wanted to buy and pay a fee. And then we got phones, we got computers, and now you could do it yourself, but you still have to pay a fee. These guys were like, we're not doing that. So, big fan of that because I think they're revolutionizing on their financial products. I think in the future, they're going to be one of the major players in finance and personal finance. These guys are killers, but they're still a very new company, and I'll put them as not bad. However, I do own a decent bit of Robinhood. So let's talk about Michael Saylor. Man, run away from Michael Saylor, I'll be honest. He runs MicroStrategy or just strategy now. I'm not necessarily against the guy. I think he's great. He's very smart. He knows a lot about Bitcoin and the crypto markets. But his bet is that Bitcoin is going to go up 30% year over year for the next 10 years. I can't really comprehend Bitcoin going up 30% for 10 years straight, and his company betting all of this money, getting all of these loans that are due years from now, and their strike prices, their premium they're paying on it. It's insane. It's just is just insane, and it's too much of a bet for me to bet my money on him and his guys to go and do what he wants to do. So in my opinion, this is a run because it's just too much. There's too much stuff going on with them. So I wouldn't put my money in there. So let's talk about Warner Brothers Discovery. I would say this is more of a depends on your strategy. I'm not a fan of WBD, Warner Brothers Discovery. They made that acquisition of Discovery a couple of years back, and now they're selling the whole company to Paramount, most likely, because they acquired Discovery with too much debt, and it was just a bad investment. Legacy media is just not a thing anymore. TV, nobody watches TV, unfortunately. And well, not unfortunately, because I don't watch TV either, but I don't know why they bought Discovery. It was a bad bet, and now they're trying to get rid of it. Their company's full of debt. Nobody wants them. Netflix is going to buy them. And then Paramount came in and started putting all these bids. Not a good play, in my opinion. But depending on your strategy, depending on your knowledge of this, you might have a play here. In my opinion, I don't really understand this industry. I don't understand how they make money super well. I just know they have a lot of debt because they acquired Discovery. So I stay away from them. So let's talk about Mr. Zuck. I think Zuck's a strong performer. I think Meta is one of the best stocks in this market today. They trade at a pretty low PE ratio. They make a ton of cash. They're investing hundreds of billions of dollars over these next 5 years to build their own infrastructure so they can run their own servers. If you think about Meta, they have more than 3.5 billion active users every day that go in their platforms. Guys, this is like half of the world uses Meta. It's a large number of people. Whenever they figure out AI plus ads, rather, these guys are going to be unstoppable. They're going to put the best ads in front of people, and they're going to monetize the best way they can. And they've been doing that for years now. These guys make a ton of money every year from their ads. It's mainly an ads platform, and they're trying to build their avocado AI, right? So the stock has kind of been hurt from that because they haven't really succeeded at it. However, I still think Meta is one of the best plays right now in the market, and I'm a big fan of it. That's actually my largest position, right behind this guy right here, Google. This is their CEO standing right next to a quantum computer. It was pretty sick. These guys are in everywhere. They own most of Waymo. They own SpaceX. They of course own Google, and they're killers. They make so much money from their platforms. Google Chrome is a big business for them that the DOJ, Department of Justice, tried to divest Google Chrome from Google because they thought it was a monopoly. So this is the level of business we're talking about whenever the government is telling them that they run too much business, that they got to divest. So in my opinion, Google is a great company. I think they're trading at a fairly value right now. I bought them last April, and they've returned 100% at this point. I think 90 something percent. So very happy with their performance. But are we going to see them double again in the next 2-3 years? Probably not. I think they're going to trade around the 300s, maybe top of 300s, 400 in a couple of years. But I think it's a great play overall. If you have not bought any Google, I think they're going to be one of the best players in AI. Their Gemini 3.0 model is great, and I'm a big fan of it. So let's talk about Microsoft, another major generational wealth opportunity, especially at these prices. They traded at a very low PE ratio. They've given this whole drama with OpenAI. So they own most of OpenAI, and a lot of their cloud compute revenue comes from OpenAI usage. So it's almost like I give you money, you give me money back situation. So they've gone beaten up over that. But I think Microsoft is a very good business. They're trading at a very good valuation right now. I think if you buy Microsoft, you'll be happy in the next year or two. And OpenAI, I think they're a good company. I mean, they don't make any money, but once they do figure out how to make money, those guys are going to be on top of the world. And Microsoft owns most of it. So in my opinion, these guys go in the S category, generational wealth. You should own Microsoft, in my opinion, not financial advice. So let's talk about AMD. This is a picture of Lisa Su, their CEO, and Cristiano Ronaldo. This is the most random picture I think I've seen, so I wanted to put in here. I would put her as not bad, similar to Vlad. They're not necessarily a consolidated company yet. Massive company, don't get me wrong, but they're not a big player like a mega scaler, like a Google, Meta, Nvidia, Apple. They're not there yet. However, I do think the company has a ton of upside and they run a very good business. They make so much money year over year. They're growing 20% and more every year. These guys are killers. You know, Lisa, she runs very conservative on her numbers, but they always overperform on earnings. You go check their earnings history. These guys are making chips hands over fist. So I'm a big fan of them. However, they're not yet in a stronger pick just because their revenues haven't really consolidated. They're in this hyper growth phase. I think in the coming years, they're going to be a great play. I still own a good bit of AMD, just to be frank, but they're not a major position for me. Let's talk about Mr. Elon. I would put him as depends on your strategy. I really like Elon, don't get me wrong, but Tesla trades at a valuation that is just absurd. They traded at 200, probably higher PE ratio at this point. It's just too much, guys. It moves like a cult stock, and I guess I'm not part of the cult. I really like Tesla. These guys, their products are great. They're now going into robotics. They actually got rid of the factory they used to make the Model S and the Model X, which are the two first models that came out in 2018. They got rid of those, and now they're producing robots in a gigafactory. So they're going all in with robotics, which they think is the future. I'm very bullish on robotics. They're great, but their valuation is just hard to justify. So I haven't owned any Tesla since 2019. Do I wish I held my shares? Of course. They've done very well over these last couple of years, and I'm sure they will continue to do well, but I can't justify spending money on Tesla and at a 200 PE ratio. So let's talk about Netflix. I would put Netflix as not bad, maybe even as a strong performer. Let's put them here for now because Netflix, if they acquired Warner Brothers, they're going to be the largest streaming service in the world by far. These guys have so many active users. They just keep growing the company. They're making so much money. They're going to have control of all of those studios to make their own content. That was the whole play with them. And the stock traded down because shareholders didn't really like the idea of buying this massive company, Warner Brothers. Like, why would you do that? There's so much overhead. There's so much debt that comes with a company like that. So the stock traded down, and I was looking at if I purchased a good bit of it. I still think they're fairly valued under $100. I think they trade at like $94. Great company. It's in my public account. You guys can check it out on my Will portfolio. I think I own just around 90 shares of it at a 86 base or 84 basis, something like that. But good bit of it, and I'm a fan of it. These guys are just going to grow and grow even more. They're a beast. So I would highly recommend Netflix. Let's talk about MasterCard. I'll put them as not bad for a couple of reasons. So when you think of MasterCard, they make money whenever you swipe your card. So transaction fees. Them and Visa, they run this duopoly. American Express in there too, but they're not as big of a player when it comes to transaction fees. So that's how they make money. And I think in the future, if you think about AI and automation, and when you think even about cryptocurrencies, how people are going to transact, is it really going to be the same way we've done for the last 15, 20 years? Like, I don't know about that. And those guys like Microsoft, like MasterCard and Visa, they're the ones taking the hit. And I'm a big fan of MasterCard over Visa because they just started this consulting group within the company, advising other companies on where consumers are spending money, like what age demographic, what spending habits they have. Because if you think about all the telemetry they get from their machines and their cards being used, they're sitting on a gold mine worth of data. So they're kind of capitalizing on it. That's why I think they're better than Visa for a pick like this. However, I don't think their future is very defined. So I'll put them as not bad. And this is what we got for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed 15-minute video. And don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel. And these are just purely my opinions on these stocks. I've owned actually all of them at this point. So putting some skin in the game and putting my money where my mouth is and sharing with you guys my experience with these stocks and where I think they will head. So I appreciate you being here. I want to see you guys win, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. I'll talk to you guys soon.